first question is for Mr. Brandford. What is your plan to help reduce crime in Baltimore City?
Well, the first thing I should be able to do under the Brandford plan is make sure that I put in place a good leadership team, my command staff. That's our people who are experienced, know how to implement a crime plan and implement things we need to do for our city. The second thing I need to do is walk across the street, meet Commissioner D'Souza, sit down and hammer out an agreement and make sure we have cooperation between every law enforcement agency in the city to make sure we have an enforcement and agreement or cooperation as to what our role would be in the city. We will also have to sit down with state and local officials to make sure that they are on board and know exactly what the sheriff office will be doing. We will review intelligence report. Now, we can't deploy deputies to areas and try to combat certain issues in the city if we don't know what's going on. The mayor has a program with a violent reduction strategy. The only person that's missing out of that meeting is Sheriff Anderson, and I want to make sure that my administration will be there, understand what the issues are in the city, make sure we are deployed in the city and understand the things that the community is talking about and what are affecting our young people, people returning from prison, and our seniors. And the last thing is to make sure that we do have that cooperation with the police department and other law enforcement agency so that we can effectively deploy our deputies into the community for positive engagement. So in a nutshell, that's what I'll be able to do. The Brandford plan will do that to make sure that we have positive community engagement, creating programs and creating opportunities and helping families and making sure that we are part of the city fabric and public safety.
Okay, thank you for your response. The same question for you, Mr. Wiggins. What is your plan to help reduce crime in Baltimore City?
Well, what I would do is what I've just alluded to, is I would take these undocumented workers off of city, federal, and state-funded projects in the city and ensure that the 50% unemployed black youth and black men in this city who aren't working, veterans, American citizens, green card holders, can get these jobs. The sheriff has the duty to enforce the federal law against undocumented workers working on state-funded, city-funded, and federally funded projects. We have to have some type of training program. We have to work with the unions. We have to work with business. We have to work with the Greater Baltimore Committee, which is actually pushing bringing undocumented workers to Baltimore. The mayor is putting up $200,000 to defend undocumented workers from deportation, using your tax dollars to keep you and your youth out of a job. That is unconstitutional, and she needs to be held accountable for that. That's how you eliminate crime, by reducing poverty and joblessness.
Great. Okay, I'm going to ask the candidates to keep y'all answers to 20 seconds or less.
Okay.
All right.
This board is lit up.
Yes.
Mr. Brandford, do you have any question? Do you have a question for Mr. Wiggins?
No, I just take a little issue with what he just said. Look, I'm not going to be here to enforce labor laws. There is an agency to do that. I don't think the sheriff office is the right entity to do that. When he talked about enforcing federal law, no, we're not here to enforce federal law. That's for the federal government, and I don't want the federal government coming in and enforcing laws that the sheriff office is supposed to do. Look, the sheriff office is not an entity all to itself. They do have the responsibility to enforce traffic laws, criminal laws, and civil laws. And that will be my focus, to make sure that we enforce those laws. I'll make sure that we enforce the law according to the Constitution of the United States as it is interpreted by the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay, Mr. Wiggins, you have a question for Mr. Bradford?
Yes, you say you will enforce the civil laws, but then you won't enforce the laws of the United States with regards to illegal immigration. And that is your duty as a constitutional officer, to enforce not just the Maryland Declaration of Rights, but the civil laws against illegal immigration. You won't enforce that civil law?